Welcome to DeadManTalkings. Tonight's show is a short story compilation once again for your guys' enjoyment. As ever, please do let us know down below in the comments what you thought. Please do like and share, it really does help build the channel and of course our community further. And don't forget to hashtag TeamFEAR. If you have a story you'd like to share with us here on the show, please do get it over to me on the website, which is www.DMTForestOfFear.com. And so, let's get into tonight's first story, simply entitled Dogskin. Let's get straight into that. Dogskin is a horrible name for a horrible creature. I met Dogskin in April 2011. I was nearly 8 years old. I can't remember the exact day or time or pretty much any detail of that day, aside from my meeting with Dogskin, which has been burned into my mind with vivid accuracy ever since. I had been playing with my friends in the endless forest that covered the property one of my friends lived on. We were playing one of our favourite games, hide and seek. I was usually it, as I enjoyed playing the antagonist of such games. I was waiting alone in the woods as the others scattered to find places to hide in the expanse of trees. After a hastily counted 30 seconds, I opened my eyes and headed towards one of the most common hiding spots, a thick patch of brush near the large pond where we like to catch crayfish in. I noisily crunched my way down the hill into the clearing that housed the pond, grumbling to myself loudly to see if any of my friends would respond with their usual giggles and hushed whispers. However, all was silent as I neared the thicket. "Where are you?" I called airily. "Come and find us!" called a chorus of my friends' voices from behind a large pile of wood on the other side of the pond. I trotted over to where the voices had come from and peered behind the wood. "Where?" I began to ask again, much more confused. "Here!" came the voices again, now in the woods. How had I not seen them run into the trees? I followed the voices as they led me deeper and deeper into the woods, further than I had ever gone. "Okay, this isn't funny anymore, guys," I said as I realised I had no idea how to get back to my friend's house. "I want to go home." Something moved in the trees. A pale light flicked through the trunks of a couple of old oak trees in front of me, like a ghost. "Guys," I said, taking a step back, my voice rising in fear. The air became colder and the trees swayed in the wind. The thing created. The flicking grew faster by the second. It eventually became fast enough that it formed an image, almost like a flipbook animation of sorts. As I looked on in horror, the image began to solidify. A twisted creature stood between the trees. Its pale, rotten skin hung loosely around its bones as it turned to look at me. It had the face of a dog or wolf, but much larger and furless. The flesh around its mouth was black and leaked pus and blood. Its eyes were bloodshot, though it had no pupils or irises, and it stared at me with ears erect despite being shredded to bits.
"We're here."
The creature's head rattled the branches of the trees as it heaved itself into a standing position, towering over me, even though it was still hunched over, as not to hit its head on the higher branches. You're not my friends," I stuttered, frozen in place. A rumble came from the thing's disfigured chest, and it gave a choked laugh that sounded oddly musical. I could have sworn its ribs seemed to move and nearly fall out of its loose skin as it took in a breath before speaking.
"No,"
it said with a grin that nearly split its lips to the very back of its head. I shivered. Its voice was hauntingly melodious, almost sounding like a grand piano, though incredibly strangled and croaky. At least, if a piano could talk. "Dogskin! Dogskin!" It reached up a long, curved claw to point to a patch of black, hairy flesh that looked like it had been sewn onto the rest of its skin. Dogskin. My heart pounded in my throat as I stared at the fur that covered the majority of its torso, up to the left shoulder. This skin was fresher than the decaying skin that was spanning the rest of its body and was covered in a glossy black coat of fur. Blood drained from my face as I put the pieces together. It was not this creature's skin. It was a dog's. That was not only its name, but part of its body. Why are you here? I asked, trying to desperately not scream. The stench of rotting meat wafted over me as Dogskin crept closer. It walked with a strange gait, almost like that of a gorilla or monkey. Its long, bony arms held it up as it neared me. Dogskin stopped right in front of me, close enough that I could see the maggots and botflies wriggling beneath its flesh. I nearly gagged at the stench as it laboriously bent down to be at eye level with me. It opened its mouth in a wide smile that allowed me to see the collection of blackened teeth it held. Sharp teeth, like that of a dog or cat, nestled between the flat teeth of some type of herbivore. A few human teeth clung to its black and red gums as well, though they were chipped and rotting away nearly beyond recognition.
I have come for supper.
Dogskin's throat jumped and tensed as it forced out the words with a predatory smirk. Dinner? I said softly, barely able to speak because of the terror, freezing my bones and gnawing at my insides. It's not even time for lunch yet. Dogskin chuckled, a horrid sound, before reaching up with one of its spindly clawed hands to stroke my cheek. The feeling of porous, bloody cold skin of the back of its hand against my face made me want to vomit.
You are funny.
It tilted its head, breath hot against my face. White eyes flitted over me and its smile faded. It dropped its hand back to the forest floor and it curled into a fist.
Young.
What do you mean? I asked quietly, yearning to scratch my face where the Dogskin had touched it. It itched terribly. Dogskin nodded its head, looking disappointed.
Young.
It began to step away from me.
Small.
It gave me one last once-over before turning around and stumbling off, its contorted body convulsing with every movement. It let out small noises as it shuffled away that sounded like someone slamming their fists on the keys of a piano. I stared at it, too horrified to move until it was out of sight, but even then, I didn't move. I could still hear the piano. I felt the cold. My face was starting to burn where it had touched me. The slamming turned into a peaceful, eerie melody the further Dogskin was from me, slowly growing fainter and fainter until it was silent. Later on, my parents told me the rash was from some sort of poison ivy or oak, but I'm not convinced. I know it wasn't some sort of fantasy I conjured up in my young age. I feared Dogskin might come for me soon, now that I'm older. I can taste its wretched stench when I'm alone outside, and the melody of the piano is carried on the wind. This next story is by the fantastic Lighthouse Horror. Make sure you check out their YouTube channel, of which I'll leave the link in the description box below. And so, without further ado, let's get into tonight's second story, entitled The 3 Rules You Must Follow to Survive a Night in a Coastal Alaskan Town. Let's get straight into that. Rule number 1. If you see yellow eyes peering out at you from the water, run. The first reporting of the thing with the yellow eyes came from Billy, a 13-year-old boy with a reputation for having an overactive imagination. This is Officer Cooper. What seems to be the problem? Silence, and then, I saw something. What did you see? I asked, not yet knowing with whom I was speaking. Well, as I went near the water, there were 2 glowing yellow... This is Billy, isn't it? I interrupted. Boy, I swear to God, if you call in here with one more of your tales, I'm going to call your father. But I really saw something this time. Oh yeah? Just like when you saw the werewolves having a picnic in the middle of the day down on the 6th Street? Or maybe like when you called out from school due to all your teachers being some type of zombie aliens. A pause. Well, okay. I had been given bad information on the zombie alien thing, but the werewolves, they were legit. Another pause. Did you ever check on that, by the way? Get off the damn phone, Billy, I yelled. Silence again, this time for good. The next call came in 1 hour later, at 11 PM, almost on the dot, but it wasn't from Billy. Hello, this is Officer A little girl was drowning. Where? King's Landing. Something pulled her into the water. I sent 2 other officers and an ambulance, but by the time they reached the spot, the little girl was dead. The caller had completely refused to try and go in after her. Looking back and knowing what I know now, he would have died as well. Which brings me to the next rule. Rule number 2. Never go near the water at night. Not for any reason. There were 2 things that stuck with me from that incident with the little girl. The first was just how terrifying the caller had been. An absolute refusal to go into the water himself, despite the fact that the little girl could, and indeed did, lose her life. And the second was his description of something just below the water's surface. The thing with the yellow eyes. Over the month of October, 4 different children went missing. 4. You have to understand that the population in our town is only 10,000 or so, and 4 kids going missing in the span of a month. It's just surreal. And all under the same circumstance, the water. Every one of them had walked up to the water's edge at night. You'd think after the 3rd child died, the parents would keep a closer eye on their kids. But as any parent out there knows, that's not as easy as it sounds. Kids will be kids, and they gravitate towards anything scary and unusual. The growing murmur of something in the water, something with yellow eyes, and something that takes children, and something that, yes, something that even smiles, was enough to keep tempting them to get a look for themselves. The last incident had been a week earlier. The town had been put on an alert that under no circumstances was any child permitted to be outside of their home, and especially not anywhere near the water at night. But it hadn't helped, and 30 minutes in, I got the call I had been dreading. A little boy had gone missing from his bedroom at 9:45 PM. Upon checking in on him, his parents had found the upstairs window open and no trace of their son. Horrified, they had run downstairs and followed his footsteps to the very edge of the Pacific, where they disappeared into the dark water. The little boy's body was the first of the children to stay undiscovered. When I spoke to the parents myself 2 days later, they confirmed the details of the yellow eyes. I don't think I'll ever forget those soft words as the boy's father sat dejected across from my desk. He was alive when we got down there, he whispered. And then that yellow thing smiled at us as it dragged John out away from the shore. The thing you saw was yellow? I asked. He shook his head. Just its eyes. Which brings me to our final rule. Rule number 3. If you think you see a pair of yellow eyes staring at you from the water, don't look. Rumour has it that those eyes will hypnotise you, especially if you're a child. And before you know it, that thing would have pulled you out too deep and too far for you to get back alive. The Coast Guard has been patrolling the waters every night since. But at some point, they're going to stop. At some point, that thing is going to come back for more. Well, there's something else I haven't shared. And there was a legend from my childhood, a legend about an old man in our town that lost his son many years ago. As the story goes, that creature had yellow eyes as well. I know it word for word. I know it so well because that old man had been my father's best friend. To some, it's just a legend, nothing more, nothing less. But I'm starting to think that when his friend had gone missing so many years ago, my father had been telling me the truth about what had happened, and that perhaps our town is in some way connected to a greater evil. Maybe I should take my old sailboat miles off the coast as he did. Maybe I'll find that thing with yellow eyes waiting for me. And maybe it'll give me the same smile too as it tries to pull me under into the darkness. All I know is, whatever happens to me, I'm not letting it take another soul. I'm starting to believe that the legend of the creature and the old man is true. Wow. Awesome stuff, Lighthouse Horror. Wonderful writer there. As I did say, I'll leave a link for the channel in the description box below the video. Do take a second to go over there and subscribe and check out some of their content. Make sure you let them know that I sent you. This next story is sent in by my good friend Jessica Revas and is simply entitled The Tikbalang. Let's get straight into that. A rainy Friday night of November 17th, 1999 at Daniel K. Inouye Airport, Hawaii. Bye, Kona, my father said. See you in the Philippines next weekend. Here is how it all started. I want to get this off my chest. This happened 20 years ago, 2 months after my father's sudden death. His death really took its toll on me. I dropped out of college and isolated myself. My brother knocked on my bedroom door and asked me if I was okay. I yelled at him, "Go away! Leave me alone!" He opened the door and told me to go out, go surfing, swimming, or whatever it is that I do to have fun. So I looked at my dog, who was by the way curled up next to me, and his name is Jax, and told him, "I guess we are going hiking, buddy." He perked up and started wagging his tail. But before this, I have to pack up and prepare. This is at 10 AM. See, DMT, my father has collections of firearms, so I decided to sneak in his office and open one of his secret cabinets full of firearms. I took the AK-47 and an extra magazine just in case. I'm always prepared when it comes to this kind of thing. I learned from the best. I'm going on a hiking trip at a place where my father used to take me once in a blue moon and told me he goes to this place when he's feeling distressed or wants to clear his head. So I decided to go there. This is 2 hours away and indeed secluded from civilization. There is a walk path heavily dense at some area and an amazing view at the top overlooking the ocean. Trust me, once you're up there, there is nothing more rewarding in the world compared to this view. This is what I simply call breathtaking. At 1 PM my dog and I arrived at the bottom of the mountain and parked my car under this huge tree for cover because it was too sunny out. Jax got out of the car and stretched his legs and did his business and was sniffing at something. I did not mind him while I was preparing my backpack for our supplies. My backpack is ready. I put my gun on my shoulder and not really worried about anyone seeing me since I know that there is not a single soul. I have headed this way for about 15 miles out of the coast. I am all ready to hike. I called Jax and he came running towards me and off we go. I am very aware of my surroundings, so I can hear the chirps of the birds, the sound of the wind blowing and bugs, etc. Now halfway to the hike, Jax and I decided to stop under this massive mango tree. Jax sat down beside me and I gave him his water. I was eating my sandwich and was enjoying the cool breeze. I noticed that there was no sound. The silence was deafening, but I brushed it off. Off we go again. I was startled to see this old woman with rough-looking dress, and she was dressed like she was not from this era. I would totally understand since we lived in a remote province north of the Philippine Islands. What I don't understand is she came from the way where I was going, and she warned me not to go to the top of the mountain. I told her, "Ma'am, I'll be fine." She held my hand and prayed over me. I told her thank you, and off she went. She was in a hurry for some reason. That was odd. I mumbled to myself. 10 minutes later, into the hike, and Jack stopped and started growling. The hair on his back and all stood up from his tail to his neck. I have never seen him this way. Back then in those days, I would hear our house helpers talk about paranormal stuff, and I would listen to them exchange stories. I did not believe them. I told them so. I walked away from them and said, "You believe in this nonsense." See, we live in a very large farmhouse. We have cows, goats, pigs and chicken. We also have plantations of vast tropical fruits and varieties of vegetables. My father likes his food homegrown. Anyway, back to my story. It started kicking in, the memories from when I was younger about this paranormal activity out in the woods. This creature is a humanoid horse called Tikbalang. Tikbalang is a creature of Philippine folklore and said to lurk in the mountains and forests of the Philippines. It's a tall, bony humanoid creature with the head and hooves of a horse and disproportionately long limbs, to the point that its knees reach above its head when it squats down. A very creepy creature, indeed. Suddenly chills went all over my body when I saw this creature finally show itself from its hiding spot. Jax is not just agitated, he was ready to attack the Tikbalang. I went into a defensive mode and dropped my backpack and aimed at the creature. As soon as I did this, it charged towards me. I started shooting this humanoid creature. I aimed right at its neck, chest and head area. With my father's AK-47 being fully automatic, I finished 60 rounds on it in no time. I saw it get hit too. It whimpered and made this bone-chilling sound I will never forget till the day I die. Jax was nowhere to be seen, and I panicked and was calling for him. I may have scared him away with the sound of the gun. The creature was gone too, and I ran downhill. I forgot my backpack that has my extra magazine, and my adrenaline was pumping into my body crazy. Whilst I was yelling for Jax, he finally showed up with a bite mark on his left rib. I did not see the creature bite him, and this is where I realised I'm out of ammo. I have never, ever ran so fast in my life until this day, and luckily I have my car key on my pocket, and as soon as I got down the hill, the old lady was near my car, and this time she wasn't alone. With her is some guy about my age and has this scar mark on his face. I was catching my breath, and this time I'm on a panic mode. I'm flipping the fuck out at this moment. I couldn't get my words straight, and I told her this thing up there is huge, and I shot at it and it disappeared. I hit it though. I saw its neck got hit and blood started coming out of its neck, and the lady and this dude was giving me water. I rejected it, since I was raised not to take anything from strangers. But this dude, he already gave my dog water, and Jax drank some, and then I said, "No!" I told him, we have to leave, and so I picked up Jax this time. He is already bleeding. I arrived in this tiny town and took my dog to a local hospital, since I don't know where the local veterinarian is. I'm dirty, sweaty, and my shirt is filled with Jax's blood. They asked me what happened, and I told them the truth. The nurse looked at me and asked, "Did you hurt the creature?" I said, "Yes, I shot it," and she said, "I'm sorry, but I can't help you." I'm about to lose my shit when the doctor arrived. I told him the situation, and he said, "I don't usually do this, but I will help Jax, since I have to. I have a dog at home myself." They patched him up, and after an hour he was ready to go home. By this time, my brother and his entourage was already outside of the hospital and waiting for me. "Jess, you were gone for 5 hours, and trouble already has haunted you." I asked him, "How the hell did you know where I was? How did you know I was here?" I did not even realise that the old lady that I saw earlier was the mother of my father's personal driver. And then it clicked that the guy she was with was my father's driver's son. Everything makes sense now. The stories they were talking about when I was younger were real. I told him, and he said, "I know what you saw. Your father has seen it too, hiking this trail not so long ago before he passed away." Tears started falling down my cheeks. We left the hospital, and I was at the back seat of my SUV. My brother kept yapping, and I told him to shut the fuck up and be quiet, and so he did. We got to the house, and I carried Jax to my room, and we both fell asleep. Later, I woke up the next morning, and Jax was nowhere to be found. He disappeared like a bubble, with no signs of struggle or anything. He just disappeared. This was just way too much for me to handle, and so I went back to the States to distract myself from grieving, not just for my father, and now for Jax. That's all, DMT. I'm crying and in so much pain while writing this down. I have to let the world know that there are things we cannot comprehend and understand. That's all. Thank you, DMT. Regards, Jess. Wow, awesome stuff there. Guys and girls, you know the drill. As ever, please do let us know down below in the comments what you thought. Please do like and share and help build the channel and our community further. Help us smash our way through that 25,000 subscriber mark before Christmas. And as ever guys, I hope you're well and happy and looking forward to a wonderful, restful weekend. And remember, be safe, not sorry.